What's up, everybody? Poll session for this one, not a road to 18-inch arms, but I am going to continue to do that kind of rapid-fire Q&A from my Instagram from the last road to 18-inch arms episode. So let's get to it. First question, ever train squats in your Smith machine? I notice you usually train legs at a commercial gym, just curious. Yeah, I did this for a couple months before I got the gym membership. I got the Smith machine January of last year. I love Smith hack squats in it. Specifically, I really like just regular Smith squats too. I find they work really nice. It's extra stable, but I haven't had a need to do that since I do have the commercial gym membership where I have the pendulum squat, hack squat, squat press, leg press, basically everything. Next question, I'm forever stuck in bulking and cutting intervals. How do I know I have a stable bulk? And how do I know that I'm not currently on maintenance? So the biggest key with this is going to be your body weight. Ultimately, your calories, especially if you haven't done calorie tracking yet, it's going to be a bit of a guesstimate at first, but ultimately your body weight is going to be the most important thing. So I'd recommend weighing yourself at least 3 times a week. Every day is ideal, or at least every weekday. Do it in the morning with the same amount of clothing on each time you take the weigh-in. In this way, you can make sure that your rate of weight gain is what you desire. So whether that's a pound a month, 2.5 pounds a month, or somewhere in between, you can basically just make sure that on average, you're on pace to hit that each month. You can reverse engineer from there. What's your opinion on cable curls and machine preacher curls for biceps? They're all great lifts. I mean, with machine preacher curls, I find this gets to be a bit of a gray area because the machine resistance profile does vary quite a bit. So I'd say for just a standard selectorized machine with a flat resistance profile, I like them, but I'm not going to act like they're in the same tier as something like a lengthened biased machine or even just a regular easy bar preacher curl. So the machine you're using does absolutely matter. If it's lengthened biased, then it's cool. I'd argue that's even a hair better than a regular standard easy bar preacher curl, but that's such a small detail, it's not even really worth considering. So I would say as long as it's lengthened biased, that's great. If not, it kind of defeats the purpose of it being a preacher curl. And if it's mid or short biased, it just turns it into a seated spider curl. So I wouldn't even really call it a preacher curl at that point. The only reason you would is because it, like, from the outside without looking at the resistance profile, it just looks like a preacher curl station. Next question, do you track calories, and what are your opinions on instinctual eating? I don't track calories, I track my body weight, and I do eat intuitively based on that. I would say the best way to eat intuitively is to have 2 of your meals. For me, I personally like to do breakfast and lunch as the same thing every day. And that way you don't have to worry about fluctuations. I don't weigh anything or anything like that since obviously I don't track, but it's roughly the same thing every day, give or take a couple calories. Dinner will vary whether I'm going out to eat with people, making dinner here with Miss Basement, or just eating something random on my own. In this way, you have a little bit of control over the start of the day and most of your diet at that point, actually, with meals 1 and 2. And from there, based on your dinner, assuming you're having roughly the same amount each day, maybe 200-300 calories net difference total each day, then you can really just play around with your snacks. And if you have the same snacks each day, the same caloric intake of snacks each day, and your body weight's plateauing, you can just add an extra 1 to 250 calories in a snack throughout the day. I find that's the easiest way to do it. Next question, will there be a grandiose video at the end of your 18-inch journey outlining your approach? Yes, it probably won't be anything too fancy, but yeah, I can't wait to make that video. I've learned a lot about arm training, especially since starting this channel. Keep in mind, when I started the channel, my arms were still less than 16.5. Advice on how to stick with one program. I can't stick to one. I keep overthinking everything about my program. So the key here is to realize that your programming is important, but the most important thing about programming is mastering what's directly in front of you. You only have to change things if you need to change things. If you don't have a need to change things based on the results that you're seeing and measuring from your program, don't change your program. Until you've proven to yourself that there's something inefficient and not working in your current program, then don't make a change. Assume what you're doing is working until you have a reason not to, within reason, of course. When focusing on a weak point, could training it once a week but with 100% focus on it be enough? No, I'd always recommend twice a week. Your muscles are going to be recovered within 48, maybe 72 hours tops every time. So I would always opt for a twice a week frequency. Maybe 3 times a week. It depends on the muscle you're training, what lifts you're using, intensity, volume, etc., all the usual stuff. But I'd say with this, you just have to be careful about not not going too long without training, because your muscle will actually start to atrophy. Not to fearmonger, but it will slightly shrink the longer you go without training it. That's 100% a real thing. But at the same time, you don't just want to spam frequency, because your joints and everything aren't going to be able to recover. You're going to feel beat up, and it might work in the short term, but muscle growth is a long-term game anyways. So I would just disregard considering that entirely for the most part, outside of unique circumstances. Do I have to bulk to get 18-inch arms if I already have a high body fat percentage and my curls stalled? So, no, this is going to be fairly individual based on your level of advancement. So what I'd say is, what it comes down to is how much muscle mass compared to fat mass you need to have your arms measure 18 inches. Like, you can have, say, a 16-inch arm at 13% body fat, and you might have to be 20% body fat for that amount of muscle to be 18 inches, but you might only require like a 15.5-inch measurement at 13% body fat to get to 18% at 22% or whatever. Those are just kind of random numbers, but I hope that made sense. The Barbell Apparel covert shorts have officially dropped. I've been testing these out for a while. These things are sweet. I've been wearing them almost every day at this point. I have a couple pairs. I have the green, and then I have these brown ones too. These are perfect for anything outside that you're doing, any type of adventure, whether it's like hiking, camping, kayaking. Those are the things I like to do. This is what I'm going to be wearing them for this summer. All sorts of features: stealth zipper pockets, reinforced tool pocket, carabiner and clip loop, military grade 4-way stretch fabric, athletic fit, lifetime replacement guarantee per usual with Barbell Apparel, size exchange guarantee. These things are perfect for the summer. They're great for outdoorsy type stuff like I like to do. Next question: how do I make leg day fun? I have great legs, but I find myself bored out of my mind on leg days. So what I would do for this, and it sounds crazy, I would just sit in silence for 15 minutes before you do your leg day. If you sit in silence and just do absolutely nothing, your brain will find anything, like literally doing anything, entertaining. I do this myself. I've been doing this for years. If I ever don't want to do something, especially lifting, I'll just sit and do nothing, throw my phone across the room or put it in another room or something, get rid of my computer, just sit there and do nothing, and your brain will wander. You'll start to think about the workout, and you'll pretty much be good to go from there. Next question: accommodating resistance on isolations. Thoughts? So with this, it's going to depend on how you use the accommodating resistance. If this is going out of your way to make a lift short biased, I would be against this, because I do prefer to train muscles at longer lengths, and I do genuinely believe they grow better at longer lengths. So in kind of the classical sense of accommodating resistance, I would probably avoid that. But I would say at the same time, if you're going out of your way to make the lift length and biased based on your setup, I'm for that. Or if you have other setups you can use, whether it's internal or external, with the lift itself to make it length and biased, I'm all for that. So if you have, say, like a T-bar row, that's a great example of turning a regular row that's no resistance profile to a length and biased resistance profile. I'm all for that. I know that's a compound lift, but even something for an isolation like a side raise, if you were to do it with a cable, with the cable origin set at wrist height, that will make it length and biased. I'm all for that. Even if you just have like a simple setup and you use a dumbbell lying flat on a flat bench or on a low incline bench on your side, that will make it length and biased too. I'd rather make stuff length and biased, is what I'm trying to say. Opinion on top set and back off set method. So I do like this. I actually don't use it a whole ton. I've experimented roughly with this in the past, not necessarily just one set on each move on, but close enough to where I have a pretty good grasp of how it works. So I would say with this, it makes the most sense on lifts that change based on how heavy you're going / how strong you are. So if you're doing something like a barbell curl, this is always the example I'll go to. If you're doing something like a barbell curl and you take myself and I'm 200 pounds, or give or take, whatever, 203 to be specific. I know people are going to ask that in the comments, so I'll be correct about it. So if I'm 203 pounds and I'm curling 150 pounds with a barbell in front of me, my body's going to have to shift around. So say I'm doing 150 pounds for sets of 5. My center of mass is changing a bunch. The bar weighs almost as much as I do, so it's pushing me and twisting me in all these weird ways. But if I was to do, say, sets of like 12 to 20 with 100 pounds or 90 pounds or whatever, now the center of mass doesn't change quite as drastically throughout the movement, and it really does change the movement. So when you get stronger, you're using just an overall less stable lift, usually if you are a stronger person, then I think this is a great method because it really does change the lift entirely. If you aren't quite as strong, or you're just like newer to the gym or something, you're using a very stable lift, like a preacher curl, for example, then the rep ranges just don't matter quite as much. So I wouldn't worry about it as much. But overall, for situations, or for a level of experience that changes your strength levels, or for a lift that isn't quite as stable, where the load you're using does drastically change the movement pattern itself, or at least how your body has to shift around during the movement, I would definitely consider that method. So with that being said, that's all I got for today. I will see you guys in the next one.